The Olympic Stadium. Saturday the 15th of August 2016, Rio de Janeiro. It's 9 hours before the start of the men's 100 metres final, one of the biggest and most viewed sporting events on the planet. There are no spectators yet, nor athletes or officials, just a group of professionals who have so much at stake when the starting pistol fires.
I have a very specific shot that I'm aiming to take. I'm hoping for a tight shot of the winner, one person either side of them, and I also have quite a wide-angle lens on the timer in case somebody sets a world record or an Olympic record. It's a big event of the Olympics, everybody's waiting for it, and we have people in every position. With the 100 meters, it's over so fast, so you only get one chance to take the key shot.
Olympians caught in time. The history makers of the Games captured in a single iconic moment. A story that's taken a lifetime to create, told in one shot, one freeze frame. The hopes, the dreams, the sacrifice, the tantrums, the tears, the grace, the expectation, the belief, the joy. I've been lucky enough to compete in 4 Olympic Games, and I've experienced all of those emotions. I've also been photographed more times than I care to imagine. Some of the snaps are breathtaking. The work of men and women every bit as talented as the athletes they photograph. Thousands of athletes representing every corner of the planet. A remarkable display of human endeavour. The eyes of the world upon them, everything on the line. For the photographer, the opportunity and responsibility to capture these historic moments is immense. Every photo position is fiercely fought for, with the prize being the chance to take that one iconic shot that will stand the test of time. Like the athlete, the photographer needs to be technically perfect, utterly focused. They too have their own game plans to execute. In some ways, they have as much at stake as the athletes themselves. This film is about the Olympic photographers, their passion, the technology they use, the revolution in the way that they work, and the competition for that one shot. The Olympic Games is hallowed turf for a photographer. So many possibilities, so much emotion. But while the brief couldn't be clearer, each photographer has their very own specific mission.
The photo chief's job is to keep an eye on everything photographic. Photo positions are all important. You know, if the photographer's not in the right place, he can't go back to his mate and get an interview like a writer can. If your photographer isn't in precisely right position, then he won't get the picture he's looking for.
We have clients in every country in the world, and we will cover every single runner in every single race, in every single event of the Olympics. It's our role to make sure that those people get coverage in their newspapers.
We are having 4 or 5 special pages for the Olympic Games. We have 2 superstars on. Japanese are keen to wait for their 4th-time gold medal from Athens 2004. So I am pretty happy to cover for the Games for our approximately 9 million readers.
As a specialized photographer, you take into account the different countries, the different athletes, not only the big names, because you have all kinds of clients. You have magazines, you have newspapers, you have internet. So we have a more larger, diverse outlet than an agency.
The brief may stay the same, but the method of delivery has changed dramatically over the years.
My first one in Lake Placid, as we shot the film, we put it in a little bag, gave it to a messenger who would bring it back to the main press center. They'd process it, make prints, send it out. It was 8 minutes for a black and white to get out, so you could only transmit so many photos a day. Now we're averaging about 3,500 photos per day.
There's no doubt we're living through a digital revolution, and those technological advancements are fueling an insatiable desire for real-time reports and imagery. The internet and social media platforms have transformed how the world communicates. Facebook was launched in February 2004. In Beijing, it had 100 million followers. By London 2012, that had grown to 900 million. And by Rio, 1.7 billion, 1/4 of the world's population.
We had the massive growth in social media on one hand, but at the same time there was this transformation of the use of digital media, especially mobile, greatly impacting consumer consumption habits. Today people can watch and read whatever they want, on any device they want, whenever they want.
Today is a different universe for the sports photographer. The internet and social media have been the greatest disruptor since the introduction of television. The delivery of sport on television and in print media was completely transformed in one 4-year cycle between Vancouver 2010 and Sochi 2014. Vancouver became known as the second Screen Olympics, being the first to broadcast all Olympic events on traditional television, as well as streaming them on the internet and mobile platforms. London 2012 became known as the Social Media Olympics and was the first games where the tablet was available. Sochi 2014 was the Digital Olympics, when for the first time, more people watched and read about the Olympic Games on a digital platform rather than on the traditional mediums of television or printed newspaper. It was a huge shift.
In Torino 2006, only the biggest news agencies were able to file live from a venue. Beijing 2008 was the first to introduce cabling in the tribune seats, but it was only in the Olympic Stadium, and it was only for the riders. It is now possible for every accredited photographer to instantly transfer images from any location, in any venue, to their editor sitting in the tribunes or their office on the other side of the globe.
Technology's changed so much that now we're networking about 100 cameras on the finish line, for instance, all with network cables all plugged into them, so that when the photographer pushes the button, the camera's taking the picture. Those pictures are instantly going to photo editors around the world.
This has fundamentally changed sports photography and the event infrastructure that is needed to support it.
But despite this technology, the skill of the photographer will still shine out. Great Olympic photos need careful planning, a good understanding of the sport, and real initiative. And just like an athlete, the preparation and support are crucial. Everything about the Olympic Games is big and fast for the accredited photographers covering it. Their aim is firstly to take the best photos, then equally as important, distribute them around the world almost as quickly as you'd see the event on television. A telecom's infrastructure cabling every prime photo position, stable Wi-Fi, and the support of the photo operations team are now defining factors for success.
If you have good press operations people, it can help us do our job much better. They lobby for us, they support us, and they help us get the angles that we need to get. There is a lot of competition between all the agencies, so having photos out quicker than our competition is really key.
I'm using digital cameras with WFT equipment, which can send photos directly to Tokyo. So I need high-speed, high-quality Wi-Fi's. When they get photos, they quickly make edit, that making captions, and then they will distribute photos to online and papers and everything.
This is our main editing hub, and during the Games in 16 days, we're going to move 1.5 million images through this desk. These 18 editors will look at every single one of them. What's incredible about that is they then produce out of those 1.5 million pictures 100,000 finished frames that go to our customers around the world.
But one thing hasn't changed. It's all about telling a story, capturing that one decisive moment, a moment that will endure in the consciousness for generations.
I remember that Bob Beamon picture from '68 was kind of, seared on my mind, right through the '70s and '80s, and then suddenly in '91, what you thought was a never-ending moment was a new image with Powell and Lewis. So that image can stay with you, as a child and as a professional.
An iconic photograph can add hugely to our aesthetic experience of sport. The athletes aim for perfection, pushing themselves to the limit. The photographers are no different.
What you realize is that it's not simply just being there and having a camera. You really need to bring your smarts as well as your whatever inherent photographic talent you have. In 1984, I was part of a team that was covering the U.S. California Olympics. And the biggest story of that Olympics was the race between Mary Decker and the South African runner Zola Budd. And like everybody else, I was trying to find a place to be during that race. There had been a really large gaggle of photographers at the finish line. And I was just tired of that. I didn't really have a great idea for that day, but I started walking down the track and I was about halfway down and I saw a bench with some free space on it, and I went over and I sat down with two other photographers. And I just happened to be in the place where the accident happened, where Mary fell and was out of the race. When luck smiles upon you, you just have to not screw it up. I can still remember the moment I picked up my long lens to photograph her lying down on the ground, and I just remembered telling myself, just take a little extra, tenth of a second and make sure the focus is right. It's a real dilemma, and you almost feel like you're a voyeur looking at a very private moment, but then you kind of look around and you realize that there's 80,000 people and live TV cameras. But when I look back at the picture now, even now, I sort of get that feeling like I was inside a very private moment.
I believe the Olympic Games is not just a sports event, but also the great story of life for each athlete. I think still photo is the best media to depict an athlete's mind, emotion, and passion.
A good Olympic photo is a key moment, so somebody crossing a finish line, somebody celebrating, but also knowing the backstory. Over the course of the day, I think through all the scenarios many times. I think about Usain Bolt, I think about Justin Gatlin, the relationship between the two of them, which way they're going to look, who else is in the race, what might happen, and I think through all those scenarios. So I have the most likely scenario in my head. It's telling a story in addition to capturing peak action.
It's about the athlete who gets up at 4 a.m. to train for a dream, and the photographer who hopes to be in the right place at the right time with the right lens. For both, it always comes down to a fraction of a second. That's what puts one on the podium and the other on the cover. They are inextricably linked forever in history. There's never been a great moment without a great picture.
When you're down in the moat for the 100-meter final, or on the pool deck for the swimming, you can see many well-pressed and even Pulitzer Prize-winning photographers just standing there in a line, jostling for that one position where they can capture that one shot. It's like they're competing in their own Olympic Games.
Your plan is already a little bit limited because you don't have the access or all the accesses or freedom that you want to, but there's always a way to do something different. And that's what makes it interesting and difficult at the same time. Today, for example, I won't have a specific position. Of course, you can also choose one position, but then you have only one angle. A lot of people are happy with that, I'm not.
I want the competition to be there. I want to see what I can do to try and beat somebody out of a good picture. But for me, it's all about getting that photograph and trying to maybe somehow emerge as a photographic gold medalist.
The Games are an unparalleled showcase for a host city, so it is vitally important that the photography of the sporting action doesn't miss that opportunity. Landmarks, spirit, culture, all the things that immediately identify a place. The challenge for the professional photographer and the organising committee alike is how to ensure that the city's landmarks and the look of the Games and the venues are widely reflected in the Olympic photographs being sent around the world.
The funny thing about Olympic Games is we must have sense of place in our pictures. The pictures must either feature the city in question or they must feature the look of the Games. You know, you need rings in your picture, you need word marks, say Rio 2016 or London 2012, featuring in the picture in an aesthetic way. If it's overpowering, it's no good. If it's too insignificant, it's no good. It must be placed gently in the background in a way that it complements the picture aesthetically.
There's only one Olympic Games, so it's kind of important that you show it's the Olympics in some way. You try to do a clean shot, but like using the colors and the logos and the rings around it in the background or foreground or one specific image where all this is seen.
The visual legacy is one of the most powerful and lasting legacies for a host city. The photographers and the news organisations they represent bring these images to a worldwide print, digital and social media audience. Their images capture a record of sporting moments set against the landmarks of each host city, each readily identifiable by the city's unique look and personality. During the London 2012 Olympic Games, 7,200 pages of Olympic news and photographs were published in the UK press over a 3-week period, with British national newspapers devoting a staggering average of 46 pages daily to Olympic coverage. Because the photographs that tell the story of the Olympic Games can be defined by the sense of place, the role of the photo chief can have a major influence on the look and feel of the Games. But it's a collaboration and must be planned years in advance.
One of the big things I could deliver for London was to make sure the iconic views worked well for the London Games. I went round and looked at every angle I possibly could to make sure I would deliver photo positions in the key places. This is a set of pictures of some of my favourite shots from the London Olympics. Many different photographers who came to the Games, some showing just great Olympic moments and some showing how we in photo operations helped to influence those pictures. The first picture I want to show you is this one of Horse Guards Parade. It shows the grandstand for the beach volleyball. You can see the fact that one whole layer was left off the grandstand to enable the view to be clear. Now, I feel we contributed towards that decision to allow that to happen. And if you think about it, if the grandstand had got around at this level, from inside the grandstand, the TV footage, the stills pictures would never have featured the background of London. So the decision the organising committee took to remove that grandstand on that side enabled one of the iconic views of the London Olympics to be made. House of Parliament is another fantastic London view, and this view is from the men's marathon during the London Olympics. And here, again, it was a case of reserving space. So we reserved space on the sidewalk. We made sure that there wasn't barriers along that side so that the photographers and the TV crews could shoot this amazing view as the runners went past the House of Parliament. Well, Greenwich Park, this was the amazing view we ended up with. Again, one of the great views of the London Games. When we are working with the look and feel team, even little details like how the colour around the logo is delivered, we helped contribute towards. This originally was going to be much wider, and these lines were going to point in far more towards the logo, and we managed to talk them into having them shorter so it could be included in its entirety in a stills photograph. Other things we try and influence, like here, the height the rings were above the floor and how large the word mark was. That would be a great shot in its own right, but with the rings behind the athletes celebrating having made the jump, it turned it into a great picture. One of the smallest logos of the games is at the basketball, and for the stills guys, for the cameras in the roof, the public never see this. Only the remote cameras mounted in the roof see this logo, but oh God, is that important to the photograph.
The Olympic Games is the biggest sporting event on the planet, and such is its impact on a city that 30% of photographs taken by news agencies are taken outside the venues. Everything that makes a city iconic has the potential to capture a unique moment in time for the Olympic Games.
When I got to Rio, of course, I was back on the other side of the camera photographing. This is one of my favourite shots from the Rio Games. I had to track down a picture which would show the beach volleyball at Copacabana Beach at sunset. As you can see, the beach volleyball is there. There is Copacabana Beach. There is a tiny little Cristo up on the hill. But it shows that the Olympics is there in Rio. It's a shot of Rio with the Olympics going on. This is my favourite shot from the sailing competition. It's a very long lens. On a moving image, you would have had camera shake. I'm shooting probably on a 500mm lens there, and on a boat and you're wobbling about, but I only need one frame. Whereas for TV, obviously, they need to freeze that moment and get it just right, so it's a different skill. My best picture from Rio, possibly overall, was a robotic picture. It's of a badminton player looking up as the shuttlecock descends to her, and it just so happened the shuttlecock lined up exactly with her eye. Now, I composed the picture to include the Olympic rings on the edge of the frame. I set the frame up and didn't move the camera hardly at all, so it was the ability to place the camera in a certain place. But I shot maybe 1,000 frames to get that one perfect picture.
It's 9 p.m. in Rio de Janeiro, and everything is in place for the 100 metres final of the 2016 Olympic Games. There is nothing more the athletes can do, apart from run the race of their lives. And there is nothing more the photographers can do, but make sure they capture it.
Because there's nothing like being in the stadium for the 100 metres final. It's, you know, it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for the athletes. For others, they're in a prospect of making real history. And just the atmosphere there and the crackling tension, that goes across all the journalists as well as the athletes and the fans themselves. You can have 80,000, 90,000 people in a stadium all entirely silent, waiting for sort of less than 10 seconds of magic.
It happens so fast. There's not really much time to be thinking. It's really quite incredible to watch. And everybody in the stadium is cheering, but when the race starts, it goes very, very silent. And then it's over in a flash. All our cameras are cabled and they reach the editors instantaneously. And we have a whole network of editors around the world who are also cabled. With 100 meters, we should have a photo out in less than a minute from the end of the race.
I did my first games 20 years ago, and the quickest we could do it was 40 minutes. At the 100 metres final, we moved the first picture of Usain Bolt crossing the finish line to all our customers around the world in 58 seconds.
The years of planning have boiled down to frames of a millisecond and a photograph that will wing its way around the planet in the blink of an eye. No matter what the technological advancements might have been, it's still about finding that one perfect shot that will become part of Olympic history. The art of the photographer, well, it's not just capturing a moment, it's freeing it too.